Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Greenlaw, and I am a special education teacher in Verona, Wisconsin. I'm going to start us off this evening, and I'd like to start us off with bringing us all together in a very short activity. So I'm sure like you've been rushing around all day today. Maybe you haven't even eaten supper. So if you would be so kind as to just sit down, if you're not sitting down, have a seat, and I invite you to take some deep breaths with me. I'll guide you through. So the first thing I'd like you to do is if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and just let your eyes close. If not, just let them soften in front of you. And we're going to take a big inhale together. So inhale, here we go. And exhale through the mouth, just let it all go. And we're going to do that again, all together as a community. Inhale through the nose, filling up the lungs. And release it all out through the mouth. Exhale, letting it go. And one more time, all together as a community. Inhale through the nose, filling up the lungs deeply. And releasing it all out, exhaling through the mouth. And if your eyes are closed, just gently open them. Thank you for doing that with me together. That was just a grounding activity, just to let yourself breathe. Thank you, Christina. If you could bring us to the next slide. With that in mind, I'd like to read this out loud to us all. There is an Indian proverb or axiom that says that everyone is a house with 4 rooms: a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual. Most of us tend to live in one room most of the time, but unless we go into every room every day, even if only to keep it aired, we are not a complete person. Now, I know that Marlene and I are speaking about social emotional needs and mental health for this part of the presentation and how it connects with the schools and your student. But I'd like to take some time for us all to ponder on the following. And Christina, you can go ahead to the next slide. So here we have these 4 rooms of our house or of ourself. And typically for 9 months out of the year, your student goes to school. And when your student is at school, teachers and coaches and other extracurricular adults are caring for or have a watchful eye on your student. And those adults are very often trained in social emotional learning and mental health issues. Well, since March, your beautiful child has been home and is probably home now, or is in a hybrid situation, or partially home or partially virtual. And households are in flux right now, and things might be very, very different. So when we look at the idea of a home, a person with 4 rooms in terms of a student, we really need to pull back and look at everyone in the home, and in fact looked at ourselves, or in other words, yourself, and ask yourself, how are you doing? Parents, ask yourselves for this moment, how are you doing? Because how you are doing in each of these 4 rooms greatly affects how your student and how everybody is doing. In fact, how everybody is doing in the 4 rooms of their home is going to affect how everybody is doing in the home. So if you're beginning to say, something is happening with my student, something's not quite right. We present this idea of the 4 rooms as a way to begin to tease out how to begin to maybe look at where to approach it. Which room maybe can you begin to look at, not only for your student, but also for yourself. It's sort of that old saying that we've heard on the airplanes many times. Please put on your own oxygen mask before you put on the mask of the person sitting next to you. If there's clutter going on in your own 4 rooms, it's going to be hard to get through the clutter to help your student or someone else in your home. So this visual, or this idea of these 4 rooms, presents a possible way for you to begin to think about how to help your student, and also how to approach yourself in this time of flux and chaos, and how to begin to look at where you can start in helping all of the people in your house, and which room you can begin to work on to help there become balance. Where do you need to begin to prioritize? Just like our breath, when we let go the exhale, what can you let go of in your home, in one of these rooms? What doesn't need to be there right now? So Christina, if you can advance to the next slide. So the question is that Marlene is going to guide you through next. Here's the question that we all find ourselves. What if school is in my home? And Marlene, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Marlene Cook. I'm a school psychologist in the Verona Area School District. I've been working in this district for about 17 years. And prior to that, up in Marinette, Wisconsin. I do have 2 children, an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, who are in my home, literally. And actually, now that I have a 12-year-old in my home, it is a whole nother experience having that particular age group, when I have been working with middle schoolers for all of my career. So we hear you as you're going through this journey. And so now school is literally in your home. And because of that, you are now responsible for carrying out duties that have been traditionally carried out in the school environment, the school building. And Dan referenced that earlier this evening. So now that that's happening, you're experiencing a lot of changes within your home. And now we need to start looking at what that looks like and how we're going to overcome those signs that you're seeing with your kids. So most children are going to manage well with the support of family, even if they're showing some signs of anxiety and concern, because again, we're dealing with changes right now. You may see difficulty with sleeping or concentration. For other children, we may see some other risk factors that will make for more intense reactions. Those reactions could look like severe anxiety, depression, or self-harm behaviors. And again, Dan had referenced some of this in his presentation. Risk factors could include a pre-existing mental health condition. It could be a prior traumatic experience or abuse, family instability, or the loss of a loved one. And this is not a list that's just it's not all inclusive. So there's many different factors that could lead to some of these bigger intense reactions. Behaviors that are observed include irritability, aggressiveness, being more clingy to a caregiver or parent, school avoidance, poor concentration, withdrawal from activities and friends. And obviously, we are social distancing, so that will create some of that as well. Sleeping and eating disturbances, other conflicts, as well as physical complaints of headache and stomach aches. One of the biggest observations that we see in terms of concerns include lack of engagement. So from the school perspective, some of the things that we may be observing, again, are kids who are just not getting online, or they're completing home work, they're completing work that is blank, it's not completed. So those are some of the things that we may be seeing from our view, in addition to other behaviors that I mentioned now. So let's talk about those 8 things that can be helpful to get us back into that regulation state, green zone, we refer to that as, ready to learn. So there are 8 different strategies that can be helpful. And again, I actually do like to use that example in the video, the hand model with the flipping our lid with our hands like this, with middle schoolers. And I actually think it's very important, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, that our students have an understanding about why our brain operates in the way that it does when there is a stressful event. I think it's really important for all of us to be aware of that, so that way when we're in a stressful situation, we can get back into a more regulated space with strategies that may work for us. All right, so these strategies include getting enough sleep, eating healthy, drinking water, getting exercise, getting that movement in, breathing or mindfulness, which we're talking about today in this presentation, working together as a team, because we don't expect people to go alone through this when we're struggling. So if you see your child struggling, again, working together through that event to help them out. Challenging our brains need to be challenged, and so we know that we can't, like, for example, just be on our devices watching mindless programming. However, we do need a little bit of that as well for a break, but it's good to always stay challenged, but also limiting screen time. I know what we're asking is a lot in terms of more screen time with virtual learning, so we understand that, but we also want to balance with breaks in between lessons, making sure that there's time to get up and move in between those lessons are happening, making sure that there's a break when the end of the school day occurs, because it's really easy to get into that back on the device. We're talking about older students right now, middle, high school. So we are aware that there is a lot of device usage, but even as adults, we tend to go to those devices to relax and take a break. So we definitely want to monitor that screen time. And it's okay to set those limits and boundaries at home. We recognize that is also hard to do with this age group in particular, but just modeling those good habits of getting out, getting moving, is definitely going to be helpful in this current time. All right. So when we're talking about some stress that may be happening and you're observing these concerns, we do want to look at making those home repairs. So Sarah, could you take us into the first 2, please?
So it is completely fine to get in touch with school. Talk to your student's teacher, get in touch with the counselor, get in touch with the principal if need be, get in touch with the social worker, the psych, the counselor. Call them and say, hey, I need a little help figuring out what to do. Another thing, accommodations. Work with the school, the teachers, the counselors, all those things I just mentioned. How can my student is having trouble? I'm not really sure what to do. I am not a teacher, but I see they're struggling here in math. Can we work out some ways to get some extra support, or ways to accommodate them and how they're struggling? Can we put our brains together here to figure this out? Communication is key. Helicopter, no, but communication is always good.
All right. In addition to that, strategies for regulation. So I've been mentioning that word regulation frequently this evening. We do use a program in the school called Zones of Regulation. Many schools are using this. You may even be familiar with this. We do tend to use it more at the elementary level. However, this can be easily modified for a middle school level and even into high school. I think, again, it's good for kids to identify their feelings and then work on strategies to get back into a place of learning. Other considerations include mindfulness and something called rapid resets. In addition to that communication, please reach out to student services staff as part of that team that you're working with to assist your child. That is why we're here. We're here to help, and we're trying to prioritize mental health needs.
Something else to consider if your student is fully virtual are looking and might be struggling or having difficulty engaging is what are your school's opportunities for possible face-to-face interactions? You never know until you ask. And again, asking is different than demanding. And so having that communication and asking and having a conversation, you never know until you ask. Districts are different, schools are different. And so just investigating what are the possibilities for perhaps some face-to-face interactions or one-on-one interactions virtually. Again, you just never know until you investigate those possibilities.
And also, don't forget, we do have community resources. We can actually help you get connected to those community resources for additional assistance. And Christina, we can move on to the next slide. And as we wrap up today for Sarah and I, what are schools currently doing to support mental health and well-being during this global pandemic? There is no easy answer. Our focus is on health and safety, number one, also mental health concerns. We do want students to be growing academically, but we realize that there's a lot of things that are out of our control right now, and we're doing our very, very best to control what we can and support your child. So know that there is no easy answers to how best we're meeting students right now. Districts are trying to make the best decision based on the state and county mandates. Also, whether we should be in person, virtual, or a combination, and for who and when. A lot of decisions need to be made, and there's no easy answer. So also utilizing those mental health supports within your building, whether it's more direct service that can be done virtually, as well as working with those staff members who are assisting with teaching social emotional learning. You need to remember that we are experiencing a collective trauma as we go through this global pandemic. And there's a quote from this year, we are in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat, and everyone's going to respond very differently. So we want you to remember tonight to have grace. Have grace for yourself, have grace for others. We need to have grace in the nest right now, in your home, in your nest, because creating a safe nest for students so that they learn and thrive, and when they eventually fly, they will soar. Grace and resiliency are very important right now. We want you to remember that, and we appreciate your time this evening.